Picture this in slow motion. You are walking through a busy coffee shop. A face in the crowd lights up. They walk straight toward you, grab your hand warmly, and call out your name with absolute, joyful certainty. You smile back. You nod. But inside, you are in a state of sheer, silent panic. Your brain is frantically ripping open every drawer of your memory, desperately searching for a file. But it returns completely empty. So, you put on a brave face and deploy the ultimate survival words. "Hey there, it is so good to see you. How have you been, my friend?" It is a universally terrifying moment. And it leads us to a bizarre paradox. Why is it that your brain can flawlessly recall the exact melody of a song you have not heard in 10 years, yet completely surrender to a name you were told just 5 seconds ago? Before we dive into exactly what kind of trick our brain is playing on us, we have to acknowledge a very uncomfortable truth. Forgetting a name carries a tremendous amount of guilt. We live in a world that places a massive weight on this specific act of memory. Popular self-help books and communication gurus constantly remind us that a person's name is the sweetest and most important sound in any language. We are deeply conditioned to believe that remembering someone is the ultimate sign of respect. Because of this cultural conditioning, when you draw a blank, you are not just experiencing a simple memory lapse. You are handed a silent moral sentence. The immediate assumption is that you simply do not care enough. You automatically label yourself or fear being labeled as self-absorbed, insensitive, or just plain arrogant. But it is time to drop that heavy emotional baggage. Let us completely dismantle this unfair accusation right now. Forgetting a name has absolutely nothing to do with a flawed character. It is not a sign of low empathy, and it certainly does not mean your brain is failing you. What you are actually experiencing is a universal hardware glitch in the human mind. It is a deeply wired, incredibly common psychological and neurological phenomenon that happens to everyone, regardless of their social status or how much they genuinely care about others. To truly understand this hardware glitch, we have to travel back in time. Imagine our ancient ancestors living tens of thousands of years ago. They existed in small, tight-knit tribes of no more than maybe 150 people. For them, survival did not depend on remembering a complicated combination of syllables. It depended entirely on rapid, accurate visual recognition. When an early human encountered a stranger in the wild, their brain had to make a split-second calculation. Is this person a friend? Or are they a threat? Are they angry? Or are they welcoming? To stay alive, the human brain became an absolute master at reading faces, decoding body language, and sensing emotional energy. It was brilliantly programmed for visual survival. But names? Names are just abstract, arbitrary sounds. In the grand timeline of evolution, complex language and the concept of formal personal names are incredibly recent inventions. Our brains simply did not evolve to prioritize these random audio labels over life-saving visual data. Now, fast forward to our modern reality. We have taken this ancient, visually driven brain and thrown it into an environment of extreme social overload. Today, you might swipe through hundreds of faces on a dating app in just 10 minutes. You attend networking events, jump into crowded video calls, and are introduced to dozens of new people every single month. We are forcing a primitive system designed to intimately know a very small group of people to suddenly process and store thousands of isolated audio tags. Because a name lacks any real survival context, your brain does not see it as essential data. When you meet someone new, your brain is busy analyzing their smile, their eyes, and their tone of voice. The name itself just bounces off. It is not a failure of your character. It is simply your ancient brain trying to navigate a modern social world it was never built for. So, how exactly does this failure happen in real time? To truly understand the mechanics of this glitch, we need to look at three fascinating psychological concepts. The first is a famous phenomenon known to cognitive psychologists as the Baker paradox. I want you to imagine that your memory is a massive, incredibly dense spider web. Every piece of information you know is a point on that web, connected by thousands of silk threads to other memories. When you meet someone new and they tell you, "I am a baker by profession," your brain instantly vibrates. Dozens of threads light up across the web. It connects the concept of a baker to the smell of fresh bread, the intense heat of an oven, flour on a white apron, and maybe even a bakery you visited as a child. The information is instantly anchored and secured. But if that exact same person stands in front of you and says, "My name is Baker," absolutely nothing happens. No threads vibrate. A proper name, in the eyes of your brain, is what we call an orphan piece of data. It is a single, isolated thread floating in the air with no context, no history, and zero emotional weight attached to it. Because it lacks any meaningful connection to the rest of your vast mental web, it only takes a tiny breeze of distraction to blow it away completely into the void. And trust me, in almost any social interaction, that breeze of distraction is practically a hurricane. This brings us to the second major culprit, the next in-line effect. Be completely honest with yourself. When you are being introduced to a stranger, are you truly listening to the words coming out of their mouth? Or are you listening to the anxious voice echoing inside your own head? The moment a hand reaches out to shake yours, your conscious mind goes into absolute overdrive, managing your own social performance. Your internal monologue fires off a rapid series of panicked questions. Is my handshake too firm or too weak? Am I making the right amount of eye contact without looking weird? Am I smiling naturally? What clever thing am I going to say the exact second they stop talking? Your attention is entirely directed inward. Your mental spotlight is pointing directly at yourself, not at them. The sound waves of their name physically hit your eardrum. Yes, but because the gateway of your memory is completely blocked by your own internal anxiety, the name never actually enters the building. Yet, let us say, you manage to quiet that internal voice. Let us say you are perfectly calm, and you actually hear the name clearly. You will still run into the final brutal bottleneck of human cognition, your working memory. Think of your working memory as a tiny, temporary whiteboard inside your mind. It is incredibly fragile, designed to hold only a handful of items for about 20 seconds. The moment their name is spoken aloud, it is quickly scribbled onto that whiteboard. But almost instantly, it is violently erased. Why does this happen? Because that tiny whiteboard gets absolutely crushed by a tsunami of new, high-definition visual data. The moment you lock eyes with someone, your brain is desperately trying to process the exact shade of their irises, the subtle micro-expressions forming around their mouth, the specific color of the shirt they are wearing, and the unique pitch and rhythm of their voice. Compared to all of that rich, vibrant, life-sized sensory information flooding your nervous system, a fragile little audio file containing a two-syllable name stands absolutely no chance. It is overwritten and deleted before you even let go of their hand. There is a profound and almost cruel irony to all of this, and it is perhaps the most tragic part of the entire phenomenon. Think about the exact moments when you are most likely to forget a name. It is rarely when you are completely relaxed. It usually happens when you meet someone you desperately want to impress. Maybe it is a potential boss, an attractive date, or a highly respected colleague. Your intense desire to make a good impression and forge a meaningful connection is precisely what triggers your internal anxiety. And here is the biological tragedy. That very anxiety completely destroys your ability to make the most basic human connection possible, which is remembering who they are. When you feel that pressure to perform socially, your brain interprets it as a low-level threat. This activates your amygdala, which is the primitive alarm system of your brain. Once the amygdala starts firing, it releases stress hormones that essentially hijack and paralyze your hippocampus. The hippocampus is the exact brain region responsible for forming and organizing new memories. So, in your desperate attempt to be memorable, your nervous system literally shuts down its own recording equipment. The emotional consequences of this biological glitch are surprisingly heavy. It leads to what we can call the awkward dance of social avoidance. We have all been there. You are chatting with someone whose name has vanished from your mind, and suddenly a third friend walks up to join the conversation. The sheer terror of having to introduce them to each other is agonizing. You start using vague terms, you physically pivot away, or you wait in miserable silence, hoping they will just introduce themselves. We trap ourselves in this invisible prison of guilt. We feel so much shame for forgetting that we actively pull back. We create an artificial, cold distance between ourselves and people who, under different circumstances, could have become our deepest friends or most trusted allies. We sacrifice potential connection at the altar of a simple, forgotten sound. But this brings up a very natural question. If all of our brains are universally wired to fail at this, what about the exceptions? We all know that one person, the charismatic executive, the seasoned politician, or the brilliant salesperson who seems to have a superhuman ability to remember the first and last name of every single person in a crowded room. Are they genetically superior? Do they possess some kind of biologically upgraded hippocampus? The short answer is absolutely not. Neurologically speaking, their hardware is exactly the same as yours. The difference does not lie in their brain structure. It lies entirely in two distinct elements: clear motivation and deliberate technique. For a politician or a business leader, remembering a name is directly tied to their modern version of survival. It is tied to their success, their income, and their social influence. Because the stakes are incredibly high, their brain assigns a massive amount of purpose to that tiny audio file. Furthermore, they do not just passively listen. They actively employ mental techniques. They force themselves to repeat your name out loud immediately after hearing it. They mentally glue the sound of your name to a striking physical feature on your face to force a connection in that mental spiderweb. You see, memory is not a passive recording device. Memory is the simple equation of deep focus plus clear purpose. When a casual social interaction lacks a high-stakes purpose, a perfectly healthy, normal brain will simply do what it evolved to do. It will conserve its precious energy, detach from the anxiety, and quietly sweep that orphan data right out the back door. So, where does this leave us? It leaves us with a profound sense of permission to finally forgive ourselves. Forgetting a name is not a confession of a cold, uncaring heart. It is simply beautiful proof that you possess a wonderfully normal human brain. You have a mind that is deeply wired to prioritize genuine smiles, real emotions, and the warmth of a shared moment, rather than dry, disconnected linguistic labels. The next time you find yourself standing in front of someone, staring blankly as their name completely escapes your memory, do not panic, and please do not punish yourself. Take a deep breath, look them in the eye, and try a brave kind of honesty. Just smile and say, "I remember your story from the other day so clearly," and I am so happy to see you again, but please forgive me. My ancient brain just dropped your name. You will probably be completely surprised by their reaction. That raw vulnerability, that shared human flaw, almost always breaks the ice. It opens the door to a much deeper and more authentic connection than simply reciting the correct syllables ever could. Because the truth is, we have all been in that exact same boat. Have you ever found yourself in a hilariously awkward situation because you forgot the name of someone truly important? We would love to hear about it. Share your story in the comments below, and let us remind each other that we are all brilliantly, beautifully human.